I do think that there is a sense to be clear on the type of person you want to be and how you want to show up, and if you want to be in the public eye or be influential to a small group of change makers. I think that's valid. But I think so often people use I don't want to be an influencer, or I don't want to be seen a certain way, or I don't want to be salesy as an excuse to not show up and to not make a difference.
Nikki, welcome to the Resilient Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm excited for this conversation today, and we're going to start off with a really nice, big, juicy question. If I were to hand you a magic wand, what would you do with it?
Well, first, thank you guys so much for having me on the show. This is a delight. Podcast guesting is literally one of my favorite things to do, podcasting in general. Absolutely love it. It's so much fun. And it's so funny because right when you asked me that question, my brain went into completely different directions. So it's like if I could wave the magic wand on like the planet and like the earth and everything, like my big thing has always been children. And I really have a passion for foster kids and like those in the adoption system. So I really believe that every child should be like clothed, fed, loved, well taken care of, have a world where they believe in possibility and that anything's possible. So like if I could wave a magic wand, that would happen. But then my other brain was like a husband. Like if I could wave a magic wand, a man who would show up. That's like the man written in my notebook for like dream husband. So those two things.
Yes, gentlemen, listen up, lean in. This may be the best episode of your life. Thank you for sharing that, Nikki. That's exciting.
It sounds to me like you're ready for a new chapter. Like you're ready for the next level of life.
Oh, 100%. So much that I feel like I have a committee at this point. Like I was just at a generational wealth event, and I was hanging out with a group of people, and there are a number of men there, all married or in relationships. But I'm like, don't worry. I'm like, you have friends. You shall help me find a husband. And they help me get really clear on my range and what I'm looking for, because apparently they're like, your age range is too broad. We need to get more specifics. So they really helped me dial it in. So, I go to an event about wealth creation. I come back with clarity on my dream husband, but, everybody walks away with their own ahas.
I love that. And of course you're around a bunch of entrepreneurs too, and they're exactly telling you time to niche down. Like you
Yeah.
got to niche and get real clear on what you want and who you're serving.
Yes, there are so many synergies between entrepreneurship and dating. In fact, when I teach marketing, I always use dating analogies. And so, I mean, I really should just apply everything I'm doing to build businesses to, finding a partner and building a life. Just very transferable skills.
Okay, I'm right there with you. I like that. That's absolutely true. I've never thought of it because, of course, Vicky and I are in marketing as well, so we're super aligned with that, understanding. But like, tell me one of your analogies because now that I'm like, I gotta know.
I love it. Well, I call it the JLD method. It's called just like dating, in which I say marketing is just like dating. And so it starts with kind of like that meet cute. So you have to get clear on where you're going to be, that like, where do you think your ideal partner is? Where do you think your ideal client is? Are they at a certain bar? Are they on a certain social media platform? Like, where are they hanging out so that you can show up there in your best light? And then how are you going to, bump into them, spark a conversation? And so it's very much like if I'm going to be on Instagram, what type of content am I going to put out there so that I can connect with people? Okay, great. Well, how am I going to metaphorically exchange contact information? Usually these days, it's like using mini chat or something similar to give away something and slide into someone's DMs or things along those lines, right? So it's very much like the same process that you'd go through dating, like the exchange digits, the get to know each other, the first date, the second date, if you like it, then you better put a ring on it. Like that's the sales conversation and offer. It's like those same processes in dating and finding a partner are the same for marketing. It's just that with marketing, it's, maybe more of a polyamorous relationship where you're like, I don't want just one client for the rest of my life. So you're doing it over and over again. But it's like the same kind of steps, I would say.
Oh my God, that's so funny. I love that. And yeah, the polyamorous. We want multiple clients, multiple customers. Yeah. And it's all just magnetic marketing, right? So how do we do that attraction-based marketing? I think entrepreneurs want to know, like, how do we attract the clients and the customers and the partners and the collaborators and all the people in a really authentic way that feels
Yeah.
good and it doesn't feel so fake or AI generated. Do you have that a lot? Do you hear that a lot?
Yeah, it's funny because I know a lot of people get frustrated with AI, and I think it's like, to me, I always looked at it as an initial draft. Like for me, I love writing, I love creating, but my hardest part for me is getting started. And then once I'm started, I'm good. So I never look at AI as like, oh, I'm gonna pop it into ChatGPT or the other millions of different AIs out there and then put it out into the world. I'm like, this is to get me started, and then it's gonna be Nikkyified or something, with proper prompting to get it a really good first draft. And so I love AI for that reason. But I think, to your point, in terms of attracting the right clients or the right people, you have to be really clear on who you are, what you want, what you're looking for, and stay aligned to that. Because the second you're not aligned with, your values, your vision, the real contribution you are to the world, it's like, not only are you not attracting the right people, even if you attract someone, it'll make you miserable because it's not what you were looking to do in the first place. So it really is a great way to stay focused on the right opportunities, the right clients, and to attract them, is to just stay aligned and true to yourself.
And Nikki, talking about, thank you for that. And talking about staying aligned and being true to yourself. This is it's a bit of a rub. It's a pain point for people because we talk about personal branding, thought leadership. Particularly, we're encouraging women to be thought leaders in their field. And yet, the thing that comes up as a block for many is I don't want to be an influencer because that's not who I am. So, can we talk a bit about this alignment and staying true to yourself whilst also building your personal brand, being a thought leader, and getting your message out there?
Yeah. I think one of the big things is, are you really being true to yourself, or are you using thoughts, feelings, emotions, and fears to keep you playing small? Because saying, like, I don't want to be an influencer, to me, is a load of crap. Like, you may not want to be, like, I don't want to be on Instagram being like, buy this water and like get an affiliate code for it. I don't want to do that. But if I want to, wave my magic wand and completely transform the foster care system, I'm going to need to be influential to somebody. Maybe not the mass markets, maybe not, everybody and their mother, but I am going to need to be influential in some way, shape, or form, which means some people are going to need to hear my message, which means I'm going to need to be clear on what that is and be brave enough to go out and share it regardless of who's listening. And so I do think that there is a sense to be clear on the type of person you want to be and how you want to show up, and if you want to be in the public eye or be influential to a small group of change makers. I think that's valid. But I think so often people use, I don't want to be an influencer, or I don't want to be seen a certain way, or I don't want to be salesy, as an excuse to not show up and to not make a difference.
Yeah. Were you always this confident? You are so confident to speak and to share. Like, well, tell us what early days Nikki was like.
No. So I used to work in corporate like a gazillion years ago, and I was the youngest person on my team. This was back in my, I don't even know, like my late 20s, or was it my late 20s? My late, my mid to late 20s. And I'm also younger than, I mean, I'm older than I look. I'm like, I try to explain that to people because they look at me sometimes like, you talk like you've worked a long time. And I'm like, no, I have. Um, but I was the youngest person on my team, and they would just send me out to go speak on stages. And I would, because they're like, we need somebody to represent the company, or we have a speaking slot with part of our sponsorship. And this was back when I worked at Intel. And so I will never forget, they sent me to keynote this talk. I mean, granted, it was for like college students, and I was like 26, 27. So I was closer to their age. It probably made a lot of sense. But I didn't know what I was doing. I was up there, like my teeth were chattering. I was freaking out. I was so nervous. And what I realized is that the more I did it and the more you do things, the easier it is to do. And so often when people tell me, "Oh, I'm not a great speaker or I'm not this," I'm like, "No, you just haven't had enough reps in the gym, metaphorically." So it's not that I wake up this confident person. It's that you can have confidence in things that you've done a million times, right? But if somebody said, "Hey, Nikki, you want to go skiing?" I have never been skiing before in my life. I went once, it didn't snow, so there was no snow. So we mainly went camping, I guess, not really skiing. I don't know what you call it at that point. So if somebody said, "Nikki, go ski," I would not be confident. I'd be shaking. I probably wouldn't want to get off the freaking whatever it is, the lift. It would be a disaster. You would not see confident Nikki. But speaking and advising people and doing things I've done a million times for the last decade plus, easy.
Nikki, something just dropped in. You're going to meet your husband on the ski fields. Get out there, girl.
That's it. That's why I haven't found him yet. He's out skiing.
He's out skiing, waiting for me to be scared out of my mind, being like, "Please help me come off of this mountain and not die."
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the
Or
new
he might
plan.
be your ski instructor. I think that's it. I think that's it. Go hire yourself an instructor.
I
And that
love
brings
it.
another thing that we talk about a lot on this podcast is the role of mentors, coaches, instructors in our lives. Have you have any that have well you've actually I think you mentioned a mentor earlier.
Yeah, I've had, oh my goodness, so many mentors in my life, both officially and unofficially, like from jobs, and then um, when I started my own business back in, I think, like 2016, I think is when I officially started my business. I hired business coaches, advisors, mindset folks, like had mentors that just guided me and supported me, and I think it's so important to have. But I think what's really important is that you find people that align and are building businesses in a way that, or whatever it is you want, businesses, relationships, whatever it is that you're seeking advice or support or guidance on, that's in alignment with you, like your values. Because one of the big things I realized is when I had, coaches or consultants or people that were teaching me how to build a business, but they were teaching me in a way that was so not me, then maybe it was too masculine for my style or too aggressive or too this or didn't leverage my skills at all. It's not that their system doesn't work, it's that it would have never worked for me because it was so not in alignment with who I am and what I want to do. And so I think that's probably the biggest piece of getting mentorship and guidance, is to be clear on what they're mentoring and guiding you on, and is the way that they achieve success in a way that you would want to achieve success or do things the way, you know, you would want to do them. Otherwise, it might not be the best fit.
Such a good point. Such a good point. And perhaps this is where we get scared off with it's not me to be a thought leader. That's just not who I am. Yet perhaps people who are saying that haven't tried it this way, haven't
Yeah.
tried doing it so that it is aligned. Just because something doesn't feel right doesn't mean you throw the whole thing out. It means you look for another way to do it.
Hey there, sorry for the interruption, but if you're a woman entrepreneur ready to raise your profile, expand your reach, and start being seen as the expert you already are, we have a challenge for you. Vicky and I have created a free guide called the LinkedIn to Latte Method. Check it out in the link below. It's designed especially for women who are done playing small and are ready to attract opportunities, clients, and increase your visibility. No tech overwhelm, no awkward call DMs, just clear, authentic strategy that works. So download the free LinkedIn to Latte guide below, take the challenge, and start turning your brilliance into real opportunities. Now, back to the episode.
Absolutely. Like I've had clients who were like, "Oh my goodness, so and so made all this money speaking on stages." And the idea of publicly speaking made them want to crawl into a hole and cry. And so they're like, "I'm just not meant to share my voice." I'm like, "There's so many ways that you could share your method or your message. It doesn't need to be on a TEDx stage or wherever that is. It could be, it doesn't have to be. And maybe it's that you start another way until you build up the confidence or the, reps, like, like the experience to do it in a certain way. But to me, it's like I never go out there and I'm like, I'm going to be a thought leader, right? I think I have thoughts and I have beliefs and I believe that they resonate with certain people, and I have, you know, decades of experience in business. And so I think that I have value, and I think not sharing what I've learned, the mistakes I've made, the things along those lines with others is a disservice. Like the reason I can say, "Oh, find people you're aligned to," is because I've spent God knows how much money on coaching and advising that was out of alignment. Probably it's like a six-figure mistake at this point, right? So like I'm like I can confidently share with people, hey, here's what I would do. And that's why, when people are like, I don't want to be salesy, I'm never trying to sell anybody anything. If my methodology, my way of being, the way I do things isn't in alignment with the other person's values or the way they want to do things, then I'm like, you don't want to work with me and I don't want to work with you because it'll never work. So it's not that big of a deal to me. But I think so often there's a lot of, pressure in entrepreneurship, especially with messages online, that things have to be done a certain way and you have to, you know, your success looks a certain way and all these things. I'm like, no, it's whatever you want, however you want to do things in a way that makes sense for you. I've had mentors that have very strong beliefs in doing things certain ways. And I'm like, that's cool. That's not going to work for me. But you can teach me this, this, and this, which is what I'm really here for. Like, like you just kind of have to know that first.
Yeah, be clear on what you want from that relationship, right? And have you found a big difference between male and female role models or mentors? Like the way women and men build wealth is different?
Yes. But yes and no. Um, I think that I'll give you an example because I do have a male mentor that's made billions of dollars in business, like 100%. And when he's like, oh, just do this, this, and the other, I listen to him and I'm like, wow, that's a very masculine approach. And I think that's fine. I know tons of women who love that masculine approach. And I'm like, that's great. But I woke up and I was like, you know, I could try it your way, but I also know that won't make me happy and I won't enjoy it. And also, I'm pretty confident if I showed up and spoke the way you just did, people would be like, Nikki, what's wrong with you? Because I'm like the bubbly, happy person. Like, like I'm not, I just, it wouldn't read the same way. But what I've learned for myself, for example, is that, you know, um, can I tell you a quick story? Because I feel like that'll explain it way better than me going down this path that I was going to go down. Cool.
Please
Thanks. Thank you
bring
for the
on the
nods in
story.
case people are listening and they're like, they didn't
Yes.
say anything. Um, Back in, I think it was the end, actually, I know it was the end of 2022. I had hopped into a car with my dad and we were going to go pick up my sister. I was visiting, or I was with my family, and we were going to go pick up my sister, and my dad was driving. And we're driving, we get off the highway, and we are on this now residential road to go to where my sister is. And all of a sudden we heard like screeching, like, like it was like a curvy road, and we heard what sounded like, and apparently was true, a car that completely lost control. And so the car was like coming at us, and we're on the proper side of the road. And my dad he slows down almost to a complete stop and pulls as far over as humanly possible, practically on the sidewalk. And it didn't matter. The car was just like, the Mustang was probably going 100 miles an hour in a 25, completely lost control because it was a curvy road, and like hit us head on. Right. And I remember right before, literally like saying to, God, the universe, whatever people believe in, I was like, nope. I was like, my dad's not dying, because two friends that year had lost their dads. And I'm like, nope, this isn't the third, like not happening. And also like, I'm not dying, but if one of us has to be hurt, like I'll take it. And it was like a split second, but these were the thoughts that kind of went through my mind. And so my dad walked out unscathed, and I went in an ambulance, and I had like a broken sternum, like my breastbone, wrist, fingers that had like to get stitches, a concussion, all sorts of crazy stuff. But the thing that I realized in that moment is that I had built a business that was 100% reliant on me and my time. I had one-on-one coaching and consulting clients. I had projects. I had all this stuff. And even with some team, it didn't matter because like I was the person delivering all the things. And what I realized is that I built a business that literally couldn't function without me. And what I find with a lot of women is that we have a passion for something and a skill for something, and we want to build a business that brings us joy, which often involves us doing things like coaching, consulting, being in there with the people, like, you know. And a lot of my like male entrepreneur friends build a business that they're like leading and they don't do anything, and that's like their joy, is that like they're literally like not doing any of the things. They built a business that runs completely without them. That doesn't mean that women don't. It just, for me, what I notice is that majority of women that I have met build something where they are so intertwined, ingrained, etc., into the business that it can't function without them. And so one of the things that I've been working on my wealth creation is that I wasn't willing to give up like certain things like VIP days and retreats, or like maybe even some group programs, because I love like certain experiential parts of my business, right? But those things aren't scalable, right? So what I do now is I learned what other folks are doing, what like from my male mentors and friends, and I now make more than enough money to then invest in other vehicles that create wealth, so that I still get to play and do the thing that I love to do, but I get to invest in things that I don't need to touch or be a part of at all. And then all of that can still fund, you know, a legacy and the impact I want to create in the world. And so for me, it's a very different model where like my male friends are very much like, oh, we just like build these businesses and exit, or we scale, we buy another business and we scale it and we just lead from the top. I'm not saying I don't do that either, but I realize that I still need the piece that brings me personal joy if I'm going to wake out of bed and do anything entrepreneurial, right? Where I think oftentimes for men, especially if they have families, they're like, I need to provide, or like, depending on the man, not all men are like this, but it's like if they're focused on they need to make a certain amount of money and provide, and I'm focused on I just want to help people and have joy, we're not going to hit the same metrics necessarily. And so it took like kind of that car accident wake up call for me to go, huh, I actually need to make sure that I'm making money without active hours, even if I still ultimately decide that I want to have some active hours in my life. But like, I can't rely on that, because if anything ever happens to me, I'm, for lack of a better word, screwed.
Hmm. It's a fantastic model. It's a fantastic model. I reckon most people listening to this are going to say, "I want me some of that." So, yeah, what was the changing point? What was the pivot for you? What did you do differently from there to create enough wealth to start investing, etc.?
Yeah. So the first thing that happened was uh, after probably, let's see, I might get months mixed up, but let's say within 6 months after my car accident, because it took some healing and things like that,
Yeah.
I actually met one of my mentors now, because a friend of mine had their husband went to one of his like wealth building events and brought her as a guest. And then she was like, oh, it was so eye opening and amazing. And then I was invited um, to this event, and ultimately like a private organization. And the big thing that I was taught was that you can only work but so many hours actively in your business or on your business at all. His parameter was like no more than 25. He really wants to get people down to 10, which is why it's such a difference between like, you know, men. Like one of my guy friends did that. They went to the event, they did it like while they were at the event. They just like called team members and were like, you're now responsible for these things and it's off my plate and I'm going to transition. It'll take a minute. But like, just so you know, like it was that simple. Um, Whereas for me, it took a little bit longer. But what I realized is that I can't be focused on creating wealth. And I can talk a little bit about what creating wealth even looks like, because I think so often people think that they need revenue in order to create wealth, but it's actually completely different vehicles, right? And so I realized the biggest thing that I needed first was time. And so I had to restructure my business, which I couldn't do overnight because I had contracts and things like that with clients and customers and along those lines. But I started shifting how I thought about it so that I could restructure my business. And so I started creating vehicles that brought me joy, but didn't require a ridiculous amount of time, which is why I think my two favorite things are retreats and VIP days, because VIP days, it's like they're both experiential. I get to do strategy work and really like help people get clear and come up with action plans, which are my favorite things to do. And there's, experiences with it, like dinners or massages or, kayaking or whatever it is, depending on what the engagement is. And so I can do very few of those and make very good money because I know how much money my clients will make after those experiences, right? And then I can use those funds to live a good life, but then invest in other things. And I've done investments as low as, it depends on connections you've had. I've done stuff with my sister and my parents actually where we each put in 10K. I've done things where we've done 100K. I've done things that were 25K. But it just like it depends, and it's just sometimes just to get started so that you're like, hey, I'm now an investor, and it changes the way you think, and then you can do it again and again and again.
Yeah. You have to do your own reframing, right? It's
Yeah.
it's it's definitely a reframe in how you think of wealth building. We think of business building as an entrepreneur and wealth as a result of the business
Yeah.
you build versus what you're saying is a little bit of a different path to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
It's
most
important people
people's
understand the
businesses,
difference.
especially, I'll use a coaching model as an example because I spent so long with coaches. But like when you really look at it, you're you're trading time for money pretty much any way you look at it, even if you've done somewhat of a scalable model. And then if you have somebody who does evaluations of companies to figure out what it's worth, it's not going to have that big of a multiplier because what people are typically buying is you. And if you're selling it, you're not going to be there. And so they're really just buying a list of people that may or may not buy something from whoever takes it over, right? And maybe you have some intellectual property and like frameworks and things like that, but it's not innately worth a lot. Whereas if you have a software business, even if you had a freaking app that you didn't charge at all, right? It was a free app, it would have a higher multiplier than your coaching business because the free app could be monetized. You could have ads put in there, right? You could have an upgraded version, but you have all these users that are in the habit of constantly going in. So there's things like that. And the wealth game, what it really is, and this was probably the biggest aha for me in life, wealth game is basically perception. Like I don't, sorry for whoever is going to be like, Nikki, don't tell people that. But if you think about a house, like the house that my parents bought, God knows how many years ago, probably like 38, 35 years ago, maybe longer, because I don't know how old I am. Hold on. They bought it in 92, maybe 91, 92. So, because I think I was a kid, but they bought the house for, let's just call it $300,000 because I can't remember how much they bought it for, right? The same house with maybe like they updated the kitchen and maybe like did a new paint job and did one other thing to it is now worth over $1 million. Nothing, we were the only people that ever lived in the house. Nothing else changed, but it's now worth a lot more, right? But it's like, it's because the market and people's perception and what they're willing to pay and what it looks like and the area it's in and all this other stuff and the demand. And I'm from New Jersey originally, and so you can still like access to the city. All these things makes it more desirable and increased in value, the valuation, the assessment, right? Or what are they called? Appraisal. I was like, the appraisal, right? So if you were going to do a metaphorical appraisal on your business, I could probably more quickly build a business that on paper with perception is worth $1 million faster than I can build $1 million coaching company. And the $1 million coaching company would probably take a lot more time and probably have a lot more expenses than the one that's a bunch of assets on paper that somebody then perceived it to be worth a lot.
Yeah, assets.
Yeah.
Assets are really, really key. And we often don't think to build assets in our business. Even things like, standard operating procedures are so valuable and increase the value because you have ways of doing things and methods and all of that, and putting that together increases the value of your business. It's such good information for people. And, this is marketing stuff. This is what we're so familiar with, but I'm sure so many entrepreneurs out there aren't, because they don't do this, but it's worth it to invest in your own assets, your own methods, create things, build things, and the value that they have,
Yeah. And
especially as you raise your profile over time, right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And they become connected to you. And talking about raising your profile, you're also an author. You've
Mhm.
got a book, Market Your Genius. Tell us about your book and how that sort of helped your business overall.
Yeah. So, Market Your Genius, the main reason why I wrote it is because so many entrepreneurs were asking, like, how do the big question that a lot of folks ask is, how do I get more clients? They're looking to increase their revenue, right? And so I wrote Market Your Genius to really meet that need and say, hey, here are frameworks, here's systems, here's what to do to create, test, and validate marketing plans that will create loyal clients and customers. And so that's really what Market Your Genius was all about. And it's designed specifically for those folks and for women who have, a experiences, life, knowledge, things that they want to share with the world to build, a company. And so Market Your Genius is really designed to do that. And for me, I kind of look at it as my, pre-car accident baby, where I was very much focused on revenue because I do still think it's important to have revenue. It's hard to invest in things, in vehicles. Honestly, most of the vehicles I invest in are actually outside of my business. I no longer feel the need to build my business bigger. I'm like, it's oddly, it's a profitable passion that funds investing in things like buying other businesses, buying real estate, investing in, other businesses. Really, primarily right now, it's businesses and real estate, but um, that appreciate in value and have cash flow, because it's a whole different game. So that will be probably like book number 2. But book number 1, Market Your Genius, is really about like, how do you build a profitable business from your experiences, expertise, knowledge, things along those lines, in pursuit of impacting others. And for me, it's been a huge game changer for 2 parts. Like, I think people go, oh, you have a book that helps you from a thought leadership perspective. It helps from a differentiation standpoint. But today it's actually pretty easy to write a book. Granted, I was traditionally published, so Hay House published my book, so that's somewhat of a differentiator. But I actually love it when people self-publish, because you can do some really cool things with your book. Like for me, I would give that sucker away for free if I could. I mean, I can technically, but I have to buy the book. Like, I have to buy my own book and then give it away for free. In order to do it. I mean, I could buy it at a discount, but like, I would give that sucker away from for free and have it be a lead magnet, and like, hey, and a brand awareness perspective, or item, because people have it on their bookshelves, they look at it, people will flip it open, they'll write in it, they'll things like that. So I do think having a book or a booklet or things along those lines can really help you get in front of a lot of people. And personally, I would probably give them away to your targeted audience. Like, if you can get the right person to read your book, I know it will bring in leads for your business.
Yeah, and you're also a podcast host. So tell us what's going on with your podcast, because you have a little update you said you might like to share.
Yes, yeah. So Market Your Genius, I started, gosh, like, it's probably 6 years old by now. Like, I think, yeah, I started it in 2019, and absolutely loved it. I've done a ton of solo episodes, interviews, again, all around like, how do you build a profitable business? And I would say, over the last year or so, I've been working on kind of like a revamp of the show, because I really do believe that there are kind of two things that entrepreneurs should focus on. I think it's building the business and also creating wealth. And I do think that they require 2 different skill sets, for most people, 2 completely different vehicles. And so Market Your Genius is being redesigned to be really focused completely on how do you build the business, but how do you do it essentially part time, right? So that you are freed up to even learn about how to create wealth and what that looks like for you. Because similar to building a business, I think there are a ridiculous amount of strategies that people will share for creating wealth. And you have to find the one that's right for you, right? Like even in real estate, there are so many different strategies. I've tried some that were not aligned and learned this the hard way. Again, very expensive mistakes I like to make, that I'm like, this is not in alignment with how I want to spend my day or what brings me joy. But there are kind of two different vehicles. So Market Your Genius will is being relaunched very much in that vein. And then I have a new podcast coming out where we already started recording episodes, and it's going to launch after we relaunch Market Your Genius, called Rollin' with the 1%. Because I've met a lot of mentors and just friends at this point, and people that are in like the 1% of the 1% from a wealth perspective. And so I want them to, like, the secrets and the things that I've been learning, I want other people to learn and hear, and kind of get that inside scoop. So I am launching that podcast as well. And it'll also have a newsletter that I've created called 1% Insider. So I will have kind of like those two vehicles out in the world to help people. Hey, let's increase your revenue and your profit while decreasing your hours and all of that jazz, so that you can then also carve out some time to start learning how do you actually create wealth, especially if you want, like, not just for yourself, though that is absolutely great, but if you have these big goals for impacting the world, whether that goal for like is similar to foster care or children or the environment or single moms, like it doesn't matter to me what your thing is, but if you have a thing that you want to impact in the world, it's probably going to take massive amounts of money to make the level of impact that you're going to want to make. And that's probably the biggest thing I had to realize, is that I'm going to need resources. Like I'm going to need financial resources, like connections, things along those lines. And in order to do that, I'm going to need to get in the wealth game.
I am so excited for you. That sounds incredible. And I think it's important for entrepreneurs, especially anybody starting out in the early stages, to know like us entrepreneurs don't gatekeep a whole lot. Like we like to share information. We like to, peel back the curtain, because at one point we didn't know what was behind the curtain either. So we got a peek, and then we've moved through, and then we've gone up different levels as you go through this journey of entrepreneurship. And then there's more. And it's like, I like, it's like thinking of it like a video game. Once you sort of figured out one level, then you go up to the next one, and it's hard again. You're going to fail. You're probably going to die and go back, and you have to restart it again. And then it's like you said, all those mistakes you made, sometimes very expensive ones, we know. And then you're leveling up. And every time you're just sort of growing in knowledge and information and resources and people and networking. Like that's the beauty of this journey, is all of those connections you make and all of those things that you learn and grow through. And then take the time to listen to people like you who have a wealth of knowledge and experiences that want to share it, want to gather your network in, and then talk to the 1%, one percenters. Oh my God, like the stories they're going to tell, the levels they're going to share is going to be incredible. So that's very exciting. I can't wait to hear your new podcast.
Thank you. I'm
Yeah.
excited for it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, we have to maybe let us know later who's some of the names you got coming on. Yeah, that's amazing. What advice would you give to your younger self when you were just starting out, before you made some of those challenges? What would you like to maybe tell yourself to kind of help you through a little easier?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would have told myself to invest in things earlier. Like the number of times I just look back, and I probably could have had so many rental properties back then. Like I probably would have said, well, Chanel is great. Maybe use that for a down payment on a place. Instead of- Maybe I tell myself things like that, like invest early. Things.
Can you say that louder for my son who's listening?
Yes, invest early.
Stop buying the clothes.
Stop
Spend
buying.
it on investment. Just
Yeah.
saying.
Yep. Yes. So, I mean, I
Got
tell
it.
myself that, but I also would probably tell myself, like, there's no one right way to do things. And I think so often, probably why I made so many we'll call them costly investments, is because I believed that there was a right way and a wrong way, and that I needed to know the right way. And there's a lot of ways, and the only way is right for you. And if I had spent more time really getting clear on what my gifts and talents were, what my values were, what brought me joy, then I probably would have more quickly found the path that was right for me, and then given also to give myself permission to choose that path. Because I think for the longest time I did things because I thought I felt like I had to, versus just giving myself permission to do whatever the heck I wanted. So for anybody listening who needs this, this is me giving you permission to do whatever the heck you want. And there's no bad decision, because you won't know how it turns out until you're looking in the rearview mirror anyway. So, do what brings you joy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Give yourself permission. And if you can't give yourself permission, give your peer permission and they'll give it back to you. Just
Absolutely.
get out there and do the thing. I love that. There's no right or wrong way. It's the way that fits for you. And that's how we can let go of any limiting beliefs. And sometimes it takes a bit of extra help with a coach one-on-one. But it's really those blocks and that way of thinking that traps us. We think it served us, and well, it has served us until now, but will it serve us going forward? I love the expression, the thinking that got you here isn't the thinking that's going to get you where you want to go.
100%. Like, most people don't realize that our brains are designed to keep us safe, but sometimes like it's doing it based off of probably not the greatest data. so like if you want to, change your life, you're going to have to change your thinking, and or at least have conversations with your brain. Like, I talk to myself all the time. I'm like, that was an amazing thought. Thank you so much for making sure that I'm safe. I mean, I am going to metaphorically jump off this cliff anyway, but I really appreciate you trying to get me to not do it, because I understand you're coming from a great safe place.
Oh, I love that. Because, yeah, you're right. That's exactly what our brain is designed to do, to watch out for the saber-toothed tiger that's always chasing us. And yet, it's exactly that focus on the negative that stops us from seeing the path ahead.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's really key to refer. I love that. Thank you for stopping me. Yeah, thank it. Thank our brain. Don't believe everything you think. Our brain goes really weird sometimes and takes us in strange places. It's not always true. In fact, most of the time it's not true. But look for the evidence of things that are true. Look for the path that is working. Look for the people that can help guide you there. Listen to the people who've been there ahead of you. I think that's a lot of your message that's resonated with me today.
Mm. Thank you, Nikki. You're beautiful. I love the message. I love your message. I love what you're doing in the world. I love the ripple effect that you're creating with supporting entrepreneurs and investors to be the next level of their best self. And we're really just excited to keep following you and have you in the circle. And now you're a Resilient Entrepreneurs bestie. You're an alumni. You're in.
I've made the club, guys.
Welcome to the club, a club of resilient entrepreneurs and resilient entrepreneur women. Because, yeah, it is a club that we need to be part of. And yeah, thank you so much. It's been an amazing conversation. I'm sure it's not going to be the last. So thank you so much for today.
Oh, you are so welcome. Thank you again for having me.